Hello, and welcome to the most honest and secure mental health podcast brought to you in collaboration with the Talley app. Launching in October, Talley's purpose-built platform will facilitate daily anonymous group and peer-to-peer conversations. In the meantime, the Talley Talk podcast will serve as a taster for what's to come. For the latest news and updates from the Talley app launch, follow @talley.app on Instagram, or you can visit www.talleyapp.com. Please also be aware that this podcast at times will cover sensitive and triggering topics due to the nature of conversation. Thank you and enjoy the show.
We all went to a festival in the summer and I took way too many pills, ecstasy pills. You feel like you want to kill yourself, like you want to die, like you're so depressed.
I was one of those people that would just go really hard. I would always do more cocaine than my friends. I would always drink until I blacked out.
We like to do a one-word check-in in Talley Talks, and it's just one word that sums up how you're feeling in this moment right now. And yeah, just let us know literally in one word or a sentence how you feel in this moment right now.
Positive.
Oh.
Grateful.
Grateful. Nice. And cool. Do you just want to introduce yourselves? I know you previously just did it a bit, but do you want to introduce yourselves with your nicknames and just tell us your journey and how you relate to the title Addiction?
You want to go first, Butterfly?
Sure. Need to get used to that name. So, hi, I'm Butterfly. And so my story with addiction started when I had anxiety from the age of 11 and just became very uncomfortable within myself and literally just wanted to numb everything that I was feeling. So didn't really realize it was addiction until very recently, but I went through many years of just relying on alcohol, on nights out with the girls. I needed that drink just to settle my mind. And I also got involved with various different drugs and the big party scene. And it was just my way of forgetting about everything in that moment. And then I turned to more natural forms of, releasing my emotion and yoga, meditation, and that's brought me on a whole new path. So I'm really grateful to be speaking about coming through that journey now and being able to help others because I know how hard it is. And that's my journey, my story in a nutshell.
Great. Thanks, Butterfly. Yeah, that was, I'm definitely excited to dig in more and learn more. Insider, do you want to let us know about yourself?
Sure. So I started using substances from the age of 14, and it started with, dabbling in pot, drinking alcohol, doing magic mushrooms. And when I got into my early 20s, I started dabbling in harder drugs, so ecstasy, cocaine. And at the time that I was using these substances, I didn't really see anything wrong with it. I just thought I was partying just like my friends. But my use was a little bit different from other people. I was one of those people that would just go really hard. I would always do more cocaine than my friends. I would always drink until I blacked out. And for a while, I thought it was just a phase that I would get over, but it wasn't. It just sort of escalated and got worse and worse and worse until I became basically a raging cocaine addict. And no matter how much I tried to stop using on my own, I just could not do it. I would tell myself that next weekend would be different, but it never was. And this just sort of snowballed into years and years of cocaine use. And then at the age of 32, I just finally, hit my last rock bottom and I decided to go get help. And I went into the 12-step program. I got a sponsor who took me through the 12 steps. And as a result, my life changed. I had sort of, my spiritual awakening, and my desire to use drugs and alcohol went away, and I became a lot happier, more balanced, and much more focused now on sort of living a spiritual life, a balanced life, and a life full of purpose. And so that's where I'm at today. I'm just like Butterfly. I'm into yoga, I'm into meditation, and I'm into helping other addicts who have gone through the same thing that I have, and now guiding them through the 12-step program as well.
Definitely. That's amazing. And yeah, it's great that you're really able to like pay your experience forward by helping people now. And I should say so I go by the name of Oxygen on here. I know I didn't say that earlier, so just to get that through. I guess I come from just the other perspective of I've never felt like I was addicted to anything, but I've always felt like it would probably be the toughest battle if I wasn't disciplined enough to come out of the other side. And I guess for starters, at what point did you both feel like, okay, I'm actually addicted at this point? Was there like a defining moment, or was there like a wake up moment?
Do you want to go first on this one whilst I roll this one over?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Butterfly. And when I really realized something was wrong was when I got into cocaine really heavily, and it just became like a twice a week thing for me. And whereas with alcohol, I sort of thought drinking on the weekend was normal, but once I started using cocaine every weekend, and, I was telling myself that, okay, like I'll skip this weekend, but then the weekend would come and I would still use. That's when I started to get concerned. And when like the weeks turned into months, turned into years, and, my then girlfriend, who I was in love with, was telling me like I need to stop, and she was really concerned for me. But even though I loved her, I couldn't put the drugs down. I couldn't stop using, and we eventually ended up breaking up. And basically, I chose the drugs over the girl I loved. And yeah, for me, that's when it became clear that I had a problem.
Cool. Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, did you lose your girlfriend, or was she able to stay with you through it, or was it too late?
No, I lost her. We were together for 3 years, and throughout that time I was using drugs, and we were using together in the beginning. But then at some point, like a normal person, she said, okay, this is getting out of hand. I'm going to stop, and we're going to stop. But she stopped and I didn't, Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Butterfly, I should say, so my voice isn't meant to be the most like prevalent voice on here. It's just a three-way thing, and I'm just learning myself. So yeah, feel free to jump in anytime, both of you, and ask each other questions as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I'm loving it so far. I was just thinking, I'm happy that I had those 2 minutes to think, because I was like, what was the defining moment? There's always been a part of me that knew that I just didn't want to be living this way, because who wants to be living in a life that's so unhappy and dependent on, drugs and alcohol? No one wants that. So I guess the moment for me was probably 3 years ago. I was working in a bar, and obviously I'm surrounded by alcohol all the time. All the people I'm surrounded by are, drinking all the time. It's normal to be getting that messed up all the time. And it just got to the point where I was getting nothing positive from alcohol apart from the taste. I was arguing with my boyfriend at the time. I was eating all the kind of food that I didn't want to be eating. I was smoking cigarettes so much when I was trying to quit. Alcohol was just like lowering all my inhibitions to me doing all the things that I didn't want to be doing. So it was the turning point for me when I was like, if I'm not getting anything from this, then what's the point? So I went cold turkey, quit drinking alcohol, haven't drank since. It's been like 3 or 4 years now. And to be honest, it was really difficult at first. It was very strange to still be in that environment and to have stopped drinking, because people think you're a massive weirdo, like if this is the person that you were before. But the mental strength that you get from saying no in those situations and choosing your health is paramount to any enjoyment you could possibly ever get from having a drink with your friends, in my experience. So that was the turning point for me.
Wow, yeah, that's really powerful. Do the both of you think some people have, I guess, just addictive personalities? And for people who have addictive personalities, do you think there's a middle ground where you can have a decent level of, let's say, for example, alcohol, if that's what you're addicted to? Or is it, if you have an addictive personality, then you should just completely stay away from that weakness?
I think it totally depends on the person. I know for me, it's easier to cut everything out. I have really strong boundaries that way. Otherwise, if I'm like having just like, one drink or a bit of this, and it's probably easier for me to be like, oh, well, I'll just have one more. But I'm curious to hear about you, Insider.
Well, okay, so I'm going to speak from the perspective of the program that I did, and in there, it's a program of abstinence, and they say, once you become a pickle, you're never going to be a cucumber again. So they definitely say that. Well, okay, so according to the program, the root issue of addiction and alcoholism is what they call a spiritual malady. So like an emptiness that the person is trying to fill with substances. And so the 12-step program is meant to address that root of the disease. They call it a disease, right? So by working the steps, you are able to connect to something spiritual. In the program, we call it a higher power. So you choose your own concept of God or spirit or universe, and you sort of surrender to that spirit and ask God to help you overcome your issue. And at the same time, you're also working other steps which address your past and help you fix sort of things that you've done wrong, right? Because when I was using, I was a horrible person, and I did a lot of negative things towards others. So you have to go and address that part of your life. So it's like a full-on like renewal type of program, right? So long story short, it's advised not to touch any substances once you've recovered.
Yeah. And Insider, just obviously under the canopy of anonymity, one of the things I was going to ask actually for both of you is whether you could share, I guess, your darkest moments. So just kind of you saying how you felt you acted towards others. Do you mind sharing more on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was definitely breaking my family's heart. They saw what I was going through. It's very hard to hide alcoholism and cocaine addiction. I'm like, I was living at my mom's place at the time. I was bringing all sorts of weird people to our house. She saw me, after a long night of using and drinking, completely just looking like a corpse, taking her money, betraying my girlfriend's trust, just ending up in all sorts of bad situations where I wasn't acting ethically or morally, and just basically wreaking havoc. Like even when it came to my work, I was missing a lot of work days because I was not in any shape to go in and work with people. I'm a personal trainer, so I would just call in sick all the time. So like in those regards, that's what was happening.
And what about you? Thanks for sharing, by the way, Insider. What about you, Butterfly?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm really grateful for these questions, because it's actually amazing to reflect back and see just how far you've come. So
it's amazing to be in the presence of both of you as well. And like, it's just really good to have people speaking about topics like this, because a lot of the time it's something distant until it happens to someone next to you. And a lot of people actually don't feel comfortable even admitting to themselves that they're not in control anymore.
Yeah, totally.
For sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's been a couple of times in my life where I've just taken it way too far. And it's definitely been from the root of anxiety, you know, just trying to numb everything. But when I was 14, I got paralytic from alcohol and ended up in hospital. And I just remember waking up in hospital and my dad was there. I was in a different city. I'm from Leeds. I was in Manchester at a house party and woke up in hospital with my dad there. Not the best time of my life at all. And, you know, obviously like my parents were so disappointed in me. And so that was one thing. And then when I was about 22 at university, we all went to a festival in the summer and I took way too many pills, ecstasy pills. And I literally had a mental breakdown. Like I literally had no sleep. Like I need my sleep, like for real. Otherwise I just go crazy, like even now. And I had to go home and I remember feeling like I needed to be admitted to like a psychiatric hospital. Like I just was in such a bad place mentally, like was such a former shell of who I am. And I just didn't actually know if I was going to get out of it. Thank God I did. I didn't go to hospital or anything. I just, you know, looked after myself, stayed with my family. But there's also other times that I come into mind now, like, you know, after nights on cocaine at like house parties, and then the next day you feel like you just, I hate saying this out loud, but you feel like you want to kill yourself, like you want to die, like you're so depressed. And it's just like the most horrible feeling. So I don't wish that upon anyone. And I hope, you know, if anyone is feeling this, then trust me, there is a way out. Like me, an insider, a proof of that. So I just want to send you like my love and care if you are going through this moment. And so that's me. Yeah. Can I just say as well, like, it's really interesting for you to hear that, you know, that you're doing not the right thing for yourself. Like we all know in those moments where we're like, oh yeah, go on then. Like we know that it's not like the right thing for our body. And I think it's just so actually great to accept that fact. Like even though you might want to stop so badly and you might want to say no so badly, like it really has to take a change in mentality to I think to switch, you know. So yeah, it's possible though. It's definitely possible.
And the frustrating thing about addiction usually is that nobody knows when that moment's going to come, right? It's very different for everybody. And usually it's been my experience from just being around the rooms of other addicts and then working with other addicts, it usually takes a certain degree of suffering that finally pushes you into the opposite direction.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So suffering is it's a sort of it's a gift disguised as a curse. You know, now I look at my addiction as a blessing in disguise, because if it wasn't for it, I would have never truly had the awakening that I had as the result of going through that and then being sort of broken enough to go and ask for help. And as a result, finding a program that truly connected me to what I was looking for my whole life. Like when I was in high school, I remember I always felt like I always felt different. I always felt like something was always missing from my life, and I wanted to know what that was. And that feeling never left me all the way until my rock bottom, that sense of emptiness, that sort of veil being between me and everybody else in the world and life. I always just thought something was missing. But when I got into the program and I started to work the steps and I connected to the spiritual dimension of living, and I started to practice yoga and meditate and read, yogic philosophy, that filled the void that I was filling with all of these other things, like sex, like drugs, like accomplishments, which never actually did the trick.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's so powerful.
That's really powerful. And just kind of what you said about your experience there inside, I was just about to say, I'd assume you both feel kind of much more purposeful now and powerful going through your journeys, and you probably just feel much stronger in terms of saying no and keeping true to what you want.
Yeah, definitely. It's actually my job now, and I know we're anonymous, but I actually am very happy if people want to follow me on Instagram or whatever, because this is my life's work now. Like, I love to help people get from where they are now to the person that they can become, because what greater gift is there than that, So it's 100% purposeful. I'm very grateful for, like Insider was saying, for suffering actually, and now being able to see the light, because you can only really enjoy the light when you've been in the dark, right? So yeah.
For sure.
On that note, what's the very first step to kind of going in the right direction? Like, what's the easiest first step to take? And I know sometimes I remember seeing an advert. I don't think it was in relation to addiction, but it was something about just say no, and it makes it sound so easy to do. But yeah, in your kind of experience, what's the first step that's easiest to do to kind of start going in the right direction?
I think probably accepting where you are. And what I want to say is loving yourself, and that can be so many different things. It can be, just looking in the mirror and telling yourself you're beautiful, or, just putting your hand on a heart and taking a big deep breath and feeling your heartbeat, or doing a self-love meditation. I think love is the cure for everything. What do you think, Insider?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a very healthy way to go about it. For me, the first step was really to start my healing, because I worked the 12 steps. So the first step in the 12-step program is to admit that I'm an addict, to admit that I'm powerless over the substances, and that my life has become unmanageable. So it's sort of just a recognition of where I'm truly at, because for many, many years, I'm denying constantly that I'm basically convincing myself that the reason I'm using is this, the reason I'm using is that, or that eventually I'll be able to overcome it. But time and time again, year after year, it's being shown to me that I can't. I can't do this on my own. Personally, I'm not saying everybody will be in that position. Some people can do it on their own, like Butterfly, it sounds like you did, but a lot of addicts can't. And so, once they admit that they're powerless and that they need help, that's when that sort of door opens for them to be able to try something different that they hadn't tried before.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Butterfly.
I just want to add, what got me through this wasn't just from being alone. I think it's great to accept that we do need help from other people, and there are people that are here to help us, whether it's, your family, your friends, the hypnotherapist, the therapist, anyone, or that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely what got me through it was not by being alone, because that was the one thing that actually made things worse. But yeah, I don't know if that applies to everyone. That's just my experience.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like in the 12-step rooms, I've heard so many different stories of people and the things that they tried. And like you said earlier, Butterfly, it depends on the person and what they connect to. Like I've heard people have used psychedelics, for example, to get over their addiction in combination with therapy. But I had a guy who I knew in the 12-step fellowship who, when he was telling his story, he said, I went and did Ibogaine in Vancouver. And Ibogaine apparently has like a really high success rate for helping people, get over smoking, heroin, etc. And he went and paid like $5,000 to do the whole thing, and he still went and relapsed. And then he did it a second time, and he still went and relapsed. So it's like it's so different, And I think that the key is just the desire to change. And if we have that desire, that life will sort of direct us to what it is that is right for us. Like we'll find it if we're seeking it,
What is Ibogaine?
It's some sort of psychedelic, like very powerful psychedelic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wrote down like a list of things that I tried to help me, and I've just got it up now. I've tried so many different things. I've tried reading books, ayahuasca ceremonies, hypnotherapy, talking about my feelings, journaling, yoga, meditation, LSD therapy, crying, human design, life coaching, and self-coaching. So like, if you've tried one thing and it's not working for you, there could be something else that's like more suited to you, or, just never stop trying. If it's like, if you're listening to this, you obviously don't want to be in the space that you're in. And that's, I commend you for that. But please just don't ever give up. Like there's always going to be another method that works for you, or another person that can help you. So there's so many different modalities out there. And now more than ever, I feel like there's so much help available, which is great.
Butterfly, out of all the kind of solutions you tried out, which you just read out, which one of those would you say was kind of the most effective for you? Because I know, of course, different things work for different people. So which one would you say worked most for you?
Yeah, it's the one that was actually the most simple. It was talking about my feelings. I was really, really lucky to have such a supportive boyfriend, and he really encouraged me to like speak about my feelings. And I think the reason why I was the way that I was is because I kept everything in. And I feel like it's actually dangerous to keep everything in. Like it's so healthy to express ourselves, and, to make sure that you're with someone who you can talk about open and freely with, and, they're not going to judge you. It's in a safe setting, etc., etc. And have a safe space where you can cry and, just really bring out that raw emotion that really wants to come out, So yeah, talking about your feelings is probably the number one thing in my eyes that can truly help you in every situation.
Yeah, I obviously being part of the Talley team, I completely agree with kind of just sharing your experiences and actually just speaking to people and letting it out. And like we did a Talley talk for in relation to November last year, and a whole load of men were just kind of talking about the last time they cried. And one guy was talking about how he's never felt worse after crying, because crying was such a release that every time he cried, he just always felt better. So it's always good to kind of, share what's inside of you and just kind of release it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's very important to address those things. Like a lot of people who come from an addiction background have often come from like childhood trauma. If one of the more popular people in the field is Gabor Mate, And he talks a lot about, childhood trauma and not receiving enough love. And, I've heard people's stories who talk about some really like horrific things happening to them, like, getting molested as kids or, witnessing like addiction in the home and being abandoned, things like that. And, one of the ways that we address it in our program is by doing an inventory where you write down a list of resentments that you have towards people in your life. So like anybody who's harmed you in the past, and you look at the situation and how it made you feel. And then you also have to look at like what your part in it is as well. And that's really where the healing takes place, because people who have come from a background of trauma, let's say their parent was maybe abusive towards them, the way that we try to do it is we try to look at the whole situation from a different perspective rather than sort of identifying as a victim. We try to look at why the other person was doing that. And generally the conclusion is that the other person was also sick. Like they also had their own issues and they were unconsciously venting their own trauma on you. And so that allows people to sort of have compassion towards the person who, let's say, victimized them, and to understand that it wasn't necessarily because there was something wrong with them personally, but it was something about the other person, their pain and their trauma that was causing the abuse. And then so they get a little bit, they become free of feeling like the victim, and they become empowered to actually forgive the person, and that heals. That's very healing.
I'd just like to interrupt the show and give our two amazing partner podcasts a quick shout out. Firstly, My Mental Mates is the podcast opening up the conversation on mental health by having guests share their experiences and discussing the good, the bad and the ugly of mental health. At the end of each episode, each guest gets to choose songs to add to the My Mental Mates Hit the Reset Button music playlist, available on Spotify and Apple Music. Podcast host Anthony started the podcast in line with running the London Marathon this year for Charity Mind. Good boy. So head to your podcast provider and check it out now. Secondly, now in its second season, the MenTalk Health podcast features discussions surrounding things such as men's mental health and what it's like to live with a mental disorder. The conversations are candid and authentic, tackling taboo topics which aren't talked about in the public sphere. Men's Talk's main aim is to encourage men to discuss mental health with their friends, breaking down the stigma that it's weak or not masculine to be vulnerable and open around your mates. To listen to the latest episodes, search MenTalk Health Podcast into all platforms, or you can follow MenTalk Health's host at _Luke Brand on Instagram and use the link in his bio to access the latest episodes. If you want a new mental health podcast to add to your collection, welcome to MenTalk Health. Thank you, and back to the show.
I don't think my parents knew, to be honest. Maybe it will help if I share what started everything, because I know exactly what it is. It was when I was 11 years old. My parents told me they were going to divorce, and they actually stayed together. They're still together now, like 30 years later. But anyway, I was 11. At that time, I just thought I'd be on the street, to be honest. My mum was like, we don't have any money to go somewhere else. And so in that moment, I just took the whole world on my shoulders and I didn't tell anyone about it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to sort this out. And I felt like I couldn't speak to my parents about what I was going through because they were going through a bad time. So I think that was the whole thing. If I felt like I could speak about my emotions, then that would have been really helpful. But I didn't know that that's what I was supposed to do that would help. And B, just didn't have the environment where I could do that. So, hey, maybe it was meant to happen that all this transpired and now I can help other people through it. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know if they could have done anything in that moment, to be honest. So
yeah, definitely. And Butterfly, I just wanted to say thanks for sharing your story about kind of your parents and you learning of their potential divorce when you were 11, because that's really young. And whenever I hear people have those conversations with children, I just always, because at that age, I don't even think I would have been able to fathom what was going on.
It affects you for your whole life, to be honest, unless you really do like the deep subconscious work, which I'm doing now, but it's still, it's a journey. It's a process for sure. It's not a one day, oh yeah, I'm better now. It's really a deep dive into just, going back to who you truly are without all that.
Yeah. And a question for both of you. Do you think, I guess stemming off of that, is addiction usually the consequence of something else? Meaning that the addiction isn't necessarily the initial problem, but it's more of the consequence of the initial problem, i.e. in this case being you learning of your parents' divorce, Butterfly. That's just an open question for the both of you or whoever wants to pick up.
Yeah, I would say totally. Everything for me stemmed from my anxiety. All the things that I tried to like numb myself with was a result of that. And so, 100,000,000% is my answer. What about you, Insider?
I definitely agree. It's always a symptom of a deeper issue or many other issues. Like after working the program and studying yogic philosophy and learning more about the mind and the body and emotions, it takes a lot of work, of which I'm still doing, but it takes a lot of work to bring yourself into a harmonious state where the body, mind, emotions, spirit are all sort of working to support each other. And usually that requires doing those deep dives and getting rid of those, or not getting rid, but really processing the trauma in a healthy way to understand it from a healthier perspective. Because there are people who go through traumatic experiences, but they never become addicts. Right. And then there's people who become addicts who go through traumatic experiences. And so what's the difference there? The difference that is in the way the two different people process that experience. Right. And so I like to say that once you get yourself into a relatively balanced state, a lot of these problems such as addiction or anxiety, they no longer can take root inside of you. Because when I was an addict, I was super anxious. Like I was too anxious to go into a mall because I was my nerves would be on edge. Today, I have zero anxiety pretty much all the time, right? And that's because of all the meditation, of all the psychological house cleaning, like all of those things to bring the mind and emotions into balance. Just like a body, for example. If a body is very healthy, it's very hard for disease to take hold inside of that body, right? And the same thing I think applies for the mind.
Wow, I just want to say I'm so proud of you. Like I know I've only just met you on this call, but to really be at a space where, you went into the mall and you were like so anxious to now you don't really feel that at all. Like you need to pat yourself on the back because that's a huge accomplishment, like for real.
Thank you. And I'm sure you've experienced the same thing, right? Because you suffered from anxiety as well. And I'm sure it's quite reduced or almost gone as well, right? From all the work.
Yeah, now I would never say that I have anxiety. Yeah, I might have anxious thoughts, but I would never label myself as an anxious person or having anxiety, which is also huge, to be fair. So, yeah.
So good on you, right? It's about doing the work, right? Like if you do the work and you face yourself, I feel like you can overcome a lot of things, right?
For sure.
Yeah, no, thank you both for coming on this Talley Talk. I think you both make amazing listeners for our members who kind of still go through things like this. And I wanted to dive into the relationships that you would have formed along the way in terms of when you were going through or when you were deep into your addictions, because I know you meet new people. But yeah, what I wanted to find out about was, I guess, the relationships you would have built through your journeys. And I know you would have met some people who would have helped you and some others who might not have helped you. But are you still in touch with people you've met through your journeys, are some of them still addicts, or have they also overcome? And did you feel like you had to move on from particular people in order to, I guess, reach this stage where you are now?
I actually lost most of my friends who I was hanging out with from high school to mid-20s, and I sort of became an insider. I was inside a lot and just, using drugs and drinking and isolating. But a few people are still around. Like a few really good friends are still there, and we still have good relationships. But since I've recovered, I've established a lot of strong, healthy relationships as a result of getting through the nightmare of addiction. And these are much more loving, much more selfless relationships. And one of the people that stuck with me was the person who is currently my wife. She met me in the last year of my addiction. At that point, I was using cocaine a lot, and I was even starting to do crystal meth, and I was just a horrible mess. And I remember I kept telling her, I would tell her, I'd say, I don't know what you're doing with me. I'm constantly breaking your heart. I'm a scumbag. Like, you really need to go and find a better person to be with. And she didn't give up on me. And I remember one of the other things I used to tell her, I'd say, like, I'll never be in a monogamous relationship. I'm too much of like a party guy. I have a wandering eye. Like, I had all of these crazy ideas about who I was. And then when I went into the program and I healed, I started looking at her and I'm like, this person is an angel. And so today we're married, and, I'm experiencing the wonderful joys of being in a very meaningful, monogamous, loving, selfless relationship, which is something I would have never been able to envision for myself when I was in the depths of my illness.
Wow, that's so beautiful. I think, you really noticed how your friendships and your relationships change with other people when you do make positive changes in your life, because you will then begin to attract people in your life who are on a similar vibe to you. When I quit drinking alcohol, I stopped hanging around certain people where they just wanted to get messed up all the time. Like, I just couldn't be in that situation anymore. I purposefully took myself out of some different friendship groups. And I mean, I tried it for a little bit, but it wasn't working, because you change as a person and you kind of have different values. This is my experience anyway. And so, to be honest, over the past few years, since I have made all these changes in my life, I've never had such beautiful relationships with people. Like, it's still mind-blowing to me, like, now. And, even still, new people come into my life where it's just so fruitful, and we have like this spiritual connection, and you have this deep, real, meaningful connection where you don't need to get messed up all the time. Like, if you have friends where you really need to have a drink, or you need to have a spliff, or you need to have a drug, to connect, then I think it's healthy to ask yourself, like, is this a true, meaningful connection that you want to have in your life? And, it might be a hard, sad realization to come to that awareness. But on the flip side, if you do make those when you do make those changes, you can have these really, really, really fruitful and beautiful relationships. And it could be with the same people that you're with now. I don't know. Things can always change. So, I think on the whole, there's a really great opportunity to have really amazing relationships when you start to do this work on yourself.
Definitely. For me, my struggle is actually procrastination, and that's probably my battle. But I think addiction is a whole nother level. But that's what I've been trying to overcome, and just being disciplined enough to do what I want rather than, being disciplined enough to be in control rather than letting other things take control. So perhaps there's a bridge there in that angle.
And have you been able to sort of make strides with that?
Yeah, it's definitely been like a roller coaster. Like I have times where it's great and everything's amazing, and there are times where I just feel like I'm in a rut, which is kind of everything around me is cluttered. My mind is just on cruise control. So like the best example is, I guess, when you just stay in bed and you just keep on watching series back to back, an episode. It's not necessarily like, if you could think to yourself, if I had all the money and all the freedom in the world right now, what would I want to do? I probably wouldn't want to watch another episode. I probably want to go outside or do something else or meet up with a friend. So like procrastination isn't necessarily doing like, I don't necessarily see it as doing stuff that, you know, you're happy to do, but I just more see it as kind of being in that cruise control mode where other things take over and they're not even the things you would choose to do if you could pick anything to do in the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like you're procrastinating because you feel like you should be doing something else versus what you actually want to be doing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. That is the case. And I think the reason why is normally because you've filled up your diary too much, that I don't know if you get that feeling where you have so much to do, so you just decide to do nothing because you don't even know where to start.
No, what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, really, it's just good to make a strong decision and say, okay, during this time, I'm going to do exactly what I want to do, which allows me to enjoy myself. And whether that be, I'm going to watch this episode, or I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm just going to, I don't know, whatever fun is out there in the world, or listen to music or something like that, and making that decision and being in control and saying, this is how I'm going to enjoy myself today, rather than kind of letting the day take control of you.
Yeah, I love that. One thing that really helped me recently, because sometimes I get in that state too, is just being like, okay, well, there's really no rules apart from the ones that you have in your mind. And if they're not working for you, then it's kind of like you imprison yourself, isn't it? So to think in a way where it's like, okay, there's no rules. There's no rules with how I respond right now. There's no rules with really how I live my day, you know, depending on if like you're self-employed or if you've just got the weekend off and you find that you've got time, you don't know what to do with it. And I think it really opens your mind to just possibilities that weren't there before. And also I feel like it opens you up to joy rather than thinking, oh, I should be doing this or I should be doing that. It allows for more freedom and liberation in my experience.
Exactly, 100%. And yeah, some of the best days I've had have been days where I've decided I'm going to spend the whole day just enjoying myself. I'm not going to do any work today. And at the end of the day, I actually feel like I've accomplished something because I've been in control and I've said, this is what I want to get out of my day. And it's been exactly that.
I love that.
Yeah, it's all about that ebb and flow, right? We can't always be going 100 miles an hour with our pursuits. We have to also know when to relax, you know, and just do nothing. So it's finding that balance within our lifestyle where we can still be productive, but not to like an unhealthy degree.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Sorry, I know we discussed this earlier, but I'm really impressed by the fact that we're all calling from different places around the world. So do you both want to share where you're calling from? I'm calling from London. Do you both want to share where you're calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Eilat in Israel.
Yeah, and I'm calling from Toronto, Canada.
Yeah, it's just, no, it's because we, like I mentioned earlier, we do Talley talks weekly, and we get people calling from different places in the world. And it's just really amazing that people from completely different locations who have never met each other could kind of connect and share experiences.
The wonders of being so interconnected, right? Worldwide.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Just as we come towards the end, I've just got a few other questions, I guess. So this is more of it's not necessarily a test, but if you think back to, I guess, your lowest moment, if there was one thing you could kind of say to yourself back then, what would it be? And feel free to take a bit of time to think to your lowest moment if you want.
Wow. I think I would tell myself to breathe. I think my lowest moment, I just can picture it so clearly. It's like you just, oh my God, it's quite hard to say actually. Like you just want to, well, I wanted to just like, you know, hit my head on the pillow at night so my mind would like finally switch off, you know, from all the anxiety and everything. And I think, yeah, if I just took a deep breath and was like, it's okay, like I'm going to get through this, then maybe that would have helped me get like 2 steps further in the moment. But yeah, what about you, Insider?
I would probably say to myself not to give up, you know, just to have faith that the place that I'm at currently is just a temporary state that can change. And to listen to that little voice in your head that's saying, enough is enough, like go and get help. Go and get help with this, you know, stop trying to fix yourself. I think that would be my my pep talk that I would give to myself.
Can I ask though, would you have listened to that if you would have told yourself to go get help in that moment? Do you think you would have listened?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Because yeah.
It's interesting. Sometimes I really do wonder if we're meant to go through that journey.
Yeah, I think we are. I think all of our suffering and all of our challenges are just there to, like, again, it's all about perspective, right? Like with the trauma, it's perspective. With the things that we go through in life, it's perspective. If we look at what's happening one way, it can destroy us. If we look at it another way, we can see it as an opportunity to grow, right? And I think that's what life is. It's sort of like a school where we get presented with these challenges so that we can transcend whoever it is that we are in our present state. You know, that's how I see it.
Yeah, totally.
So we can become a butterfly, right?
By being an insider.
That's right.
Yeah, that was really powerful, guys. Yeah, that was really good. For me, I think for my lowest moment, it would have probably just been to just stop. And because I think with me, it almost felt like a treadmill and everything's constantly moving and I'm trying to catch up to just stay, I guess, alive, really. So I think for me, it would have just been to just kind of stop and let things take their natural course.
I love that. Yeah, it's trusting, isn't it? It's trusting in like the universe or, you know, higher power, God, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I think it's this level of trust in ourselves that
exactly.
we have.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever felt like a Sunday night anxiety about what's coming on Monday, but literally Monday then comes and nothing happens on Monday. It's just like a normal day. But on Sunday night, it's almost like it's the end of the world or something.
Yeah, I know. It's a paradigm that I hope that we all come out of one day.
Mm-hmm. There's a saying in India where they say that the funeral pyre burns up the dead and worry burns up the living. So we spend so much time worrying about this imagined future, right? And it just drains us of our energy and the ability to really enjoy the present moment or to see things in a clear and balanced way. So when you say oxygen, just to just stop for a second and to get off that hamster wheel so that you can look at things objectively instead of just keeping yourself in that momentum, of just doing and doing and doing and not knowing why. It's super important.
If you're both comfortable with doing so, would you like to tell the listeners where to find you if they wanted to get in touch or just follow you and learn some more?
You want to go first, Butterfly?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on Instagram at Shansarusi, SHANSARUSSI. That's really the main place. I have a website, shansarusi.org as well. And her podcast called Women of the World on Spotify, which helps guide people back to their true self. And we speak about so many different things on there. Like the power of yoga, meditation, all these different spiritual alternative healings that people have been through that have really helped them. So, all these transformational journeys that can hopefully inspire you on your journey. So, what about you, Insider?
Thanks, Butterfly. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube under Recovery Plus. And my YouTube channel has a lot of videos where I talk about my battle with addiction, where I talk about what it took for me to recover. And I also talk about, post-recovery, some of the things that I'm doing now, which is meditation, yogic practices, things like that. So just all geared to help people, get recovered or to stay recovered. That's what my social media stuff is all about.
Great. Thank you both. That's really good. Butterfly, I should really say the name of your podcast is amazing, Women of the World. It makes me want to go and listen to it already.
It's great.
Yeah.
Do it.
So we're at the end of this Talley talk, but as usual, we like to do a one-word checkout. And I know your check-ins were both positive and grateful. But in one word or a sentence, how are you feeling after this Talley talk conversation?
You go first, Insider.
Blessed.
Cool. I like this.
Super grateful.
Great. Extra grateful. Cool. For me, I didn't even do a check-in, but my checkout would be internationally connected.
Oh, love it.
Awesome. Thanks for having us on the show. It was great to be on.
It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been amazing. I think you'd both make great listeners on our app, so we'll definitely be in touch.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That sounds good.
Thank you for listening to the Talley Talk podcast. Remember to subscribe to our channel and be the first to access our weekly episodes. For the latest news and updates on the Talley app launch, follow @talley.app on Instagram, or you can visit www.talleyapp.com. Thank you, and see you next time.